Henri?
Ah, c'est toi, papa.
Henri, tu dors encore. Lève-toi vite, sinon tu vas être en retard à l'école.
D'accord.
N'oublie pas de te brosser les dents. Et si tu vois Yvette, la voisine d'à côté, dis-lui que je passerai la remercier pour le dîner de l'autre soir.
Ok. Quand est-ce que tu rentres à la maison, papa?
Dis-lui que je passerai ce soir. N'oublie pas surtout.
Jacques! Jacques!
Je dois te laisser, Henri. Qu'est-ce qui se passe, Philippe?
Viens tout de suite! Il se passe un truc horrible!
Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Ryan from the Nostalgia Factory here, back again with another edition of Nostalgic Blast, where we take a look at the best and worst in gaming. And today, guys, I'm going to be reviewing a game in a series that I previously done a review on, and that would be Onimusha 2, which is a review that I did several months back, which if you guys missed it, you guys can check that out in the description of this video. Today, I wanted to cover the third installment in the Onimusha series, a very renowned Capcom hack-and-slash series, Onimusha 3, Demon Siege. Let's see how well this game holds up in comparison to not just prior games in its series, but as a standalone hack-and-slash experience. So let's start first with the visual presentation, and I must admit, Onimusha 3 looks good on the PlayStation 2 as well. The different environments and whatnot that you end up going through, whether it be parts of medieval Japan with Jacques, which we'll get into here in a second, because this game has a very unique system when it comes to playing as two different characters in two different time periods. But the different areas you go through with Jacques, for example, whether it be the harbor areas, the ship, whether it be going through modern-day Paris and whatnot, going through the catacombs, different cathedrals and whatnot of Samanosuke, or even going through different areas in the past with Jacques as well, going through the different main temple that Nobunaga houses and whatnot. It all looks really good, it looks crisp, clean, and a lot of it looks like really good background details, especially for the different backgrounds that are available, at least contained within this game. And I think it looks really good on the PlayStation 2. There are some visual hiccups here and there, some areas don't look as good as others, and in all honesty, I think some areas could have been improved overall, but I must admit, though, the cutscenes and whatnot are amazing within this game, especially that opening cinematic shot. It is a fantastic addition. I credited the second game with that, and this game does that very well as well. From what I had heard, several games like that did that opening cinematic, it costs a lot of money to do. So Onimusha 3 in the visual department is a solid PlayStation 2 game when it comes to that, and the opening theme cutscene is really good as well. The music in this game, once again, it doesn't carry a lot of memorable tracks afterwards. It has a lot of fantastic scores mirroring medieval Japan and even modern day music in Paris and whatnot, fitting those kinds of European themes. And it is really good to go through, especially when you're playing as the different characters available. But again, whenever you're done playing the game, I didn't find any tracks like very memorable to the point where I was remembering them for a while afterwards. They work well within the game, but again, they don't really work that well outside of the game itself. So visually and musically, this game's pretty good. Now, story-wise for Onimusha 3, this is kind of where this game takes on a different gameplay sense when it comes to playing as two different characters. Basically, Samanosuke from the first game is going to take down Nobunaga, which has been the big bad of the first 3 Onimusha games, counting this one here. At some point, though, he gets transported back to the past and replaced with a police officer from 2004 in Paris, France, known as Jacques Blanc. And working together throughout time, with the aid of a magical fairy-like being, they communicate with each other that way, and they work together with different people in both time periods to not only defeat Nobunaga in the past and in the future, but also to get back to their own time periods. And it's a very unique premise. I really do like the story this time around. There's a lot more fleshing out of characters. There's a lot more diversity when it comes to the cast, and actually having some really good scripted stories. Onimusha 2 had a simple, straightforward storyline. There was no in-depth character building. They were just kind of all there, and honestly, it just didn't feel as satisfying. This time around, it feels like they put more effort into the story, appealing to the time travel theme, making sense, especially going back and forth between 2 time periods with Jacques and Samanosuke, both experiencing different time periods that neither of them had ever lived in to begin with. And it's just a really good dynamic. They're both good characters. They're not the most fleshed out characters in video game history or anything, but they work for the story. There's some mild humor and whatnot here and there. And there's actual characterization build up throughout the game for as much as there possibly can be in an Onimusha game. And I really like the story this time around. This is one of the games that makes time travel make sense. It's not something that you're going to walk away with being an expert, like, why would you be? But it makes sense within the game. So the story in this game is actually a very good step up from Onimusha 2. Do I think it's the best video game story ever? No, but it's definitely a step up from prior entries. Now, the unique thing for the gameplay. So this gameplay, like I mentioned before, is completely the same, especially from Onimusha 2. You go through the exact same kinds of swings, so to speak, when it comes to these games. You have the option of fixed camera angles, you can have the option of tank controls, you go through different environments, you solve puzzles, you hack and slash away through enemies. You have this thing called the Oni Gauntlet, which allows you to absorb energy to keep it simple for those of you watching who have no idea about the Onimusha series. You can absorb energy from different demons within this gauntlet and use it to upgrade armor. You can use it to upgrade weapons that you get throughout the game, as well as different attributes about those weapons. And there is a good variety that Jacques and Samanosuke both get, both in the past and future, where they are both located at in the story. Personally, for Jacques, I really liked using his ice spear. There's also the lightning sword. There's a lot of really great diversity. There's a whip, even, that Jacques ends up starting out with. Samanosuke has access to a wide variety of swords and blades, all with different elemental abilities. And honestly, they all work very well. They work for different gameplay styles. They work for different situations that you find yourself in, being swarmed by enemies or in different boss fights. And I honestly really like this gameplay shift. It retains the exact same thing from Onimusha 2, but it fleshes out a lot more with different weapon variety, and I feel like this time around the upgrade system is a lot more worth doing, especially for powering up certain weapons that you favor and whatnot. Now, I won't lie, it's not perfect. For a lot of different weapons you want to upgrade, it does get really grindy, and at the end of the day, especially when you get close to the end of the game, it's not completely worth doing. And some of the weapons work better than others. One weapon that I didn't really care for too much was the dual-edged sword that you can use to create whirlwinds with wind and whatnot. I didn't really get much use out of that one personally, because I found it to be more cumbersome to use than anything. Some weapons don't really work that well in certain combat situations. But I will say, for the core gameplay itself, as far as the hack and slash elements go, this game is fantastic with that element. Especially, it's not as good as Devil May Cry or God of War, in my opinion, but it's definitely a step up from Onimusha 2, and it's solid enough on its own. And one thing that this game does, too, that appeals to the casual fans, because if those of you who played Onimusha 2 that didn't like the tank controls, thankfully for you, if you don't like Resident Evil style controls, you have the option to do analog control, which is free-flowing control, which is exactly how I played the game, and that is what made the combat a lot more engaging for me. What I said in my Onimusha 2 review was, as far as the control went, the control worked. It was built around tank controls and the fixed camera angles. This game, you have that option of doing it if that's how you're used to playing these games, but if you do not like them, thankfully for you, and for someone like me, there is full analog control. And plus, Samanosuke feels really good to control, and so does Jacques. They move really fast, the combat is very satisfying to execute. I really have no problems with the controls this time around because the analog option is there. The core gameplay and controls of this game, step up from prior entries, and from everything I described, it's pretty good. honestly, thinking back on it, some of the other parts of the game that you might be going through with like the puzzles and whatnot, the puzzles themselves, just to get this bit out of the way, because that is one of the other main things you're doing besides hacking and slashing your way through demons, is solving puzzles. Mostly obtaining an item or going to some obscure area. You take an item from one location and you go and place it in some lock. You open the door, go to the next area. You got to figure out different ways to get into certain areas to progress the story and the mission along that you're currently on. You basically finding items and using those to solve puzzles. It's like Devil May Cry style puzzles, pretty much. Nothing really in depth. One thing this game doesn't do as well as other games like Devil May Cry, for as simple as the puzzles can be, some of them can be really cryptic to do, which is the point, but some of them are a bit too complex, and the game doesn't really let you in at first on how to solve a lot of these, which can make it will take a lot longer than needed. And some of these puzzles and whatnot, in comparison to the hack and slash games I played, similar to Onimusha 2, these puzzles take way too much backtracking. There's a lot of times you're going to be going through areas trying to figure out what to do, and you waste a lot more time than necessary going back through the exact same hordes of demons, going back through the exact same areas of that level that you're on. It's frustrating at times, and that's something I think the game should have improved on. Not saying make the puzzles easier or more simple, but they should have let you know, like, give you a bit more of a hint, so to speak, on how to do it. So backtracking this game isn't that amazing, and the puzzles themselves, they're fine enough. They're not amazing personally, but they're alright, they work, and that's kind of where that leads into as far as the puzzle element of this game goes. The other thing that I didn't really care for too much within this game either, and one thing that kind of disappointed me a bit, was some of the boss fights. Now, some of the characters in this game, like I mentioned before, do get fleshed out a bit more than other games like Onimusha 2, and that's another thing with the characters. Some of them aren't used, I think, to the full extent. They have a few scenes of screen time, and they are main characters in the game. They're not as fleshed out as what they are, but they work for an Onimusha game. But some of those boss fights can be incredibly frustrating and tedious. The one I'm thinking of specifically is the fight with the, I suppose you'd call it a lion gargoyle type demon that Semenosuke fights at the end of the when they get out of Guildenstern's hideout when it's exploding, that bit of the game. That fight, for example, is in a tight enclosed arena. You barely have any room to dodge. There's no indicator of really when to attack the enemy whenever he attacks you. You have a very limited pool of energy and health that you have access to at that time. And quite frankly, it can be frustrating more often than not. And certain fights are designed completely like this in the game. And call that a downside if you will. If you consider that a fair challenge, that's fair. But honestly, I didn't really like some of the boss designs in this game either. But all in all, though, I mean, the stuff, it doesn't really detract away from the game's quality, but they are quality of life things that I think could have been improved. So, Onimusha 3 Demon Siege. To wrap this video up for my overall consensus, taking everything I've said into consideration, I feel very similar to this game at the way I did about Onimusha 2. It's a good game. It works for what it is. It's a solid time with the story, the combat, the variety, the time travel themes being implemented well, looking good on the PS2, and having a diverse soundtrack that works through areas you go through. But taking into consideration the repetitive puzzles, the lack of the game telling you exactly what you might need to do without giving you a hint, the backtracking, and some not so great boss design, this game does have a few issues with it, but I very much did enjoy this game regardless. It is not one of my favorite hack and slash experiences by any means, but it is a game that I recommend you play. I like it better than Onimusha 2, and all in all, as a Capcom title, especially of a hack and slash, and as far as a Capcom title goes on the PlayStation 2, considering all the different series and whatnot that are available, Onimusha 3 Demon Siege as a game is good. I recommend you guys check it out if you're a fan of the hack and slash genre, or you're a fan of the Onimusha series, or if you're looking to get into some kind of more simplified version, something that's not as in-depth as other series, but if you want to get into something solid to play as a game, I recommend it. It's good. And that will conclude this review of Onimusha 3 Demon Siege, guys. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know what you guys think about this game in the comment section, because I know a lot of people are familiar with a lot of different Capcom games and whatnot on the PlayStation. I personally didn't really know too much about the Onimusha series up until like a year or so ago, and I must admit, from what I've played so far, I can see why this series is still a pretty good staple in Capcom's library. But let me know what you guys think about Onimusha 3 in the comment section down below, and if you did enjoy this review, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel if you guys want to catch more videos like this in the future, other reviews and other gaming type content coming your way and down sometime in the future. And like I said, guys, comment down below your thoughts and feelings. But with all that in mind, guys, thank you so much for watching, and once again, this has been Ryan from the Nostalgia Factor saying, keep on gaming.